Welcome to the London Property Podcast, your go-to source for navigating the complex and ever-changing London real estate market. Our digital marketplace provides informative and educational content from industry leaders through podcasts and videos. We cover various aspects of the real estate experience, including buying and selling, finance, law, tax, construction, design, and more. Join us as we delve into the latest trends and developments in the market and gain valuable insights from our panel of experts.
Hello and welcome to London Property. I'm your host Farnaz Fazaipour, and today we're doing our market update videos for Q4 of 2024, and we're delighted to welcome to the show Marc von Grundherr, who I have known for many decades.
Many years.
And we are looking forward to hearing more about your insights.
Thank you very much, Farnaz. My name's Marc von Grundherr, correctly. I'm a director of Benham Reeves. I've been in this business since 1995, almost 30 years. Next year's my anniversary. And we have grown Benham Reeves from I'm one of the owners. We've grown the business from 3 branches when I joined in 1995 to 35 global branches now. And our model is slightly different from traditional estate agents in that our history was in lettings and management. Today we manage just under 4,000 homes in London. We only do London, and we still believe in the branch network. So we have 21 offices in London, and we have 15 overseas in places like Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore, KL, Dubai, which is a totally different subject. And those overseas offices are focused on owners there who want to invest in London or already may own, and us letting and managing it for us, managing the properties for them. So we do sales as well, but that's grown over the last 5-6 years. So today we have a fully operational sales business from our London base, and we're selling overseas. In addition, we have a furniture business because we don't have enough going on in our lives, which does bespoke jobs, owner-occupied jobs, but actually was set up 15 years ago to do furniture packages for an investor in Hong Kong who completes today, and we've got a tenant moving in on Saturday. So trying to coordinate it, get the money and move the furniture in so our tenant can move in on Saturday. That's why we set it up. And then the last thing that we do, which we set up, which is a new thing, was doing tax returns for overseas clients. So last year, we did 1,800 tax returns for overseas investors, overseas owners for their properties in the UK. Again, not that we've not got a lot going on in our lives, but we've tried to do everything that's focused on London property. And, if you start with the premise that owning an investment, all this add-ons you can do.
You have to do,
we do to make clients have a good experience. Obviously, things go wrong all the time, but try to give that decent service. So, I think I used to be based around the corner from your office in Kensington, just off Kensington High Street. I'm now actually my base is in Hammersmith, which is much more inconvenient, but we cover the whole of London, and I'm out and about most of the time visiting different offices and seeing what's going on in different areas, because they all differ, and that's why we have so much. But I think I've got a pretty good handle on what's going on in the market.
I'm going to summarize that and say you've got your finger on the pulse when it comes to anything to do with lettings, and this is something that obviously you and I have had in common for a while, and I'm looking forward to hearing the insight about the market.
Yep.
So diving straight in, I think that rentals is a very hot topic. You and I know why it's a hot topic, because they tax everybody out of the market and there's nothing to rent.
No.
And it's not really encouraging people to come back into the market.
No.
So I'm going to hand it over to you and not do all the talking. So tell me from your perspective what you think is currently happening in the market.
So I think we obviously just had the budget with Rachel Reeves doing the Chancellor's bit, and there was lots of talk around that. And the reason I start with that, because actually that's a really good place people thought was going to be the death of the investment market. 100%, like you say, our overseas offices, places like Hong Kong, have had a very difficult year because we don't have the same volume of investors buying. In the past, it used to be 80% investors, 20% owner-occupiers. Now, 85% people owner-occupiers for their kids, 15, 20% for investment. And the reason I look at the budget is because they talked about capital gains. Actually, she did nothing on capital gains for property owners. So the reason that's important is because actually in April this year, they reduced the rate to 24%. So if you were happy with 28% before, why wouldn't you be happy with 24% as an investor? It's paid on your profit. So actually, I don't think that's too negative. They did increase stamp duty. That's an issue, but it was only 2%, and for once they didn't tax overseas people more than UK people. It's 2% flat for an additional property. If we estimate property prices are going to go up anywhere from 4 to 7% going forward, that extra stamp has gone within 6 months. And let's be honest, you know as well as I do, an investor should not be buying a property for investment for 1, 2, 3 years. This is a 5, 10, 15, 20-year wealth growth thing. And if you're doing it to grow your wealth, 2%, come on, it shouldn't put you off. I'm not saying altogether it's not a lot, but if you weren't put off before they changed it, actually, I don't think she did anything too terrible.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So actually, I use that as an example because lots of people are quoting that as the death of the market, and actually, I don't think it is. I think you're right. Taxes are hideous here, but you look at the wealthiest people in the UK, where has most of their wealth, if you strip out the tech-com people and people that have come from overseas, if you look at where the big estates, it's by owning property. Why? We don't build enough. You know, I heard a great stat that I'm going to pretend is my stat now. We need to build a new home every 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Does that get us to 1.5 million?
That gets us over a 5-year period to 1.5.
Which is what they're planning.
Which is what they're planning.
Yeah.
If they get there, brilliant, but I doubt they will, because the problem with our planning system is so problematic for developers to be able to make money, because ultimately it's about developers, right? If you can't get a developer to do it, why is anyone going to invest? So actually, we have such a shortage of available stock, and demand is high with so many people still coming in. They're estimating our population is going to be 70 million by 2026. With more people coming in, they all need a home. So many, 538,000, I think, international students study in the UK. We all know if we have kids who are at university or been at university, there's only some accommodation for them. It's only in the first year. That means 350,000 have to either go into student accommodation, and if they're from Asia or the Middle East or overseas, they want them to go into private accommodation. 350,000 students looking for a flat. Now, if that's already taking stuff out of the market, there's a shortage. So my view is if you're looking at a long-term investment, if you are an already owner property, why would you now exit because you're worried about the taxes? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I won't sell anything now because I think it's great to pass to children. It's a great inheritance tool. It's good for income. It's these capital gains. And I think there's nothing changed in the fundamentals below a property. And I think if we now start to see growth, I think it's going to continue to be a good investment. It's just the taxes, when you add them all up, do not look great. But I think if you look at it on the long term and you're not looking for income as well as paying your loan down, I think it makes a good investment choice. I genuinely do. It's a nice fixed asset.
And also rents are actually just only going upwards.
Rents have only gone up. The market now, it's the end of the year, it's a bit quieter now than it was. We're still seeing strong rents. I've got my own flat actually in Hammersmith. I've had a tenant for the last 6 years. As ever, even though I advise clients, I've had 2 tenants. They never asked for anything. I hadn't spent a penny on it in 6 years. I went to see it when the tenant was leaving. Needed a coat of paint. We painted it. We changed a couple of bits of furniture. I threw all the linen and dressed it. And my rent is up 8% on what the current tenant's paying. My yield is 4.5%. I mean, how is that a rubbish investment? My interest is just under 4%. Of course, it's triple what it was 3 years ago, but it's 4%. I've only got 55, 60% loan to value. It still stacks up as a good investment. And so rents are going up. Capital prices, I think, will climb slowly. And there's huge demand, and lack of supply. So I think it still makes property a good investment. And I defy people to show me stuff that is as stable as owning a London investment. I'm not talking about buying Bitcoin. And I'm not talking about investing in a tech company that may or may not make money. I'm talking about something that you stick and you don't have to worry about.
You don't have to worry about it. It works while you don't have to, is what I always say. But I think, one of the things that does need to get addressed, and I'm stubborn, and I'm holding on to my rental investments in my own name with a mortgage where I can't deduct the interest payments. And, to any other person, it's like, you're a lunatic. You're still paying tax, on an asset that's basically, potentially in a cash flow negative situation. Yeah. So I think what they do need to address is allow people who are genuine rental investors to go from a personal structure into a corporate structure without having to pay stamp duty, if you don't want all the diehards to leave, right? I mean, in my family, my sister, who's not a property person, the second thing's got hairy, she's like, I'm out of here, and she sold. And I think a lot of people have done that. And I think it is sort of intentional because they wanted the mom and pops to go, and they want institutional investors to provide rentals for life, should you wish to go that way. But then that also means that we're going to have a shortage in prime areas.
100%.
So what are you seeing as a result? I mean, are you seeing any solution? Because we spoke about this off camera, where you've got build to rent investors that are in kind of the outskirts or in the peripheries, but in a prime location, are you seeing people who are thinking, here's an opportunity, let me go in and buy a whole bunch of rental investments and set myself up as a long-term investor?
So let me just say one thing you said about the pushing funds. One of my favourite things that I say to people all the time, those people that want to listen, is it's brilliant to sell to fund because, as you say, I'm a fund, so I want them to stay there as long as they possibly can. However, you are now just a number on a spreadsheet. You're on an Excel spreadsheet and your name is there as the tenant. And if you're not paying the right rent, they're just going to pick it up or kick you out. Whereas you and I, if I've got a good tenant who's been there 10 years, of course I'm going to give them a decent rent and I'm going to do whatever they want and I'm going to break my back to keep them. A fund doesn't care. A fund has no personal interest, number one. Number two, what is a fund's ultimate gain? They do want income, but their ultimate investors want exit. And when BlackRock or Greystar or one of these people own 100,000 homes in the UK or 1 million homes in the UK, let's say 1 million homes, because that's a nice big chunky number, they're going to want to exit. Who will they exit to? China Sovereign Fund? Imagine what there's going to be on the front page of The Sun when BlackRock sell 1 million homes to China Sovereign Fund. Imagine that headline. Whoever's in Parliament that day is going to be he's not going to be sitting there very long. Because that's the problem. You have no control on that kind of capital control. And when you have a China fund owning 1 million homes,
right,
that's a big problem. And I use that as an example because individual landlords are really important. Those mum and dad type owners can be terrible. Of course, you hear terrible examples. But from us as a business, out of our landlords, 95% of our owners own up to 3 properties. And a lot of them, 60%, own just 1. And those landlords are fair and reasonable. They are not just spreadsheet driven. So I use that because I think that's really important. And I think that's a problem that we see with the market. What do I think is going on in the prime market? I see no, blue sky sitting in the background. I think the yields are so low, the tax regime is so high that, as you say, if you are borrowing more than 50%, you're with the service charges where they've gone because of cost of electric and porters and all of that, which is what tenants want, the market is out of kilter. And I fear that the only investors buying in prime areas are ones like me or you who are in the market, who are looking about and find a flat that's very good value and think, can I make that work? Can I do it up and get more money and do that? There are those, but they're few and far. You buy from a new development in prime areas, you're lucky if your yield's 2%.
Right.
And I think that is just not interesting.
So you're not seeing any new breed of rental investor coming from anywhere?
We're seeing investors coming from different regions. We saw quite a bit of traction from Nigeria, of all places, but that is not for super prime stuff. The super prime stuff, the stuff that we've seen transacted, we saw some just on Kensington High Street and we've seen some in Mayfair. These are people that want to park their money. They're not interested in the yield. They are parking £10 million in an investment that if the yield is 2% gross, with no financing costs because they paid cash, but I can't see any movement into that. We certainly haven't seen any movement into the market where people are buying prime zone 1. And I just feel that you're going to, as you said, you're going to see some exiting by natural people exiting, the odd person who really wants to exit because they're frightened of everything. And so there'll be less and less stock. So that will push rents up, but it's not going to push the yields up because I don't think, if a one-bedroom flat's renting for £2,000 a week in Mayfair, I don't see it at £5,000 a week because I just don't see people paying that. And so therefore, if it's going to stay at that level, it doesn't encourage people in. And with all the taxes going on, I can't see any resolve to super prime, the super prime areas. I just can't see it
unless something changes. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And I think that, the London as a result may actually become more transient. If there isn't places that you can rent, then you're going to be like, okay, well, I need to definitely be in London for these 4 months. Yeah. So let me figure that out.
Then, of course, you've got the whole thing around Airbnb and the council's not liking that, understandably, and lots of buildings not liking that, but you can't, I still think there is a market where people like to own prime. But what I don't see, we have not seen almost zero customers exiting the prime areas because, like myself, I have something just here off the high street. Would I sell it? No. Would I like to give it to my kids? Yes. Because actually I think it's a great location, they can use it, and it's great investment long term. It's a great, capital conservation asset. But is it good when you're thinking, shall I buy in super prime? Shall I buy in Edgware? Shall I buy in Hayes? Shall I buy in Manchester? Of course, London prime stuff, stamp duties at the top rate, your yields at the lowest rate, your service charges at the highest rate, and your taxes on if you're taking a loan out. It's not conducive to, stacking investments up against one another. You're better off buying 10 units, in all fairness, in zones 3, zones 4, than buying in zone 1. And then what does that mean? It means if there's less buyers and it's only owner-occupiers, it affects capital values. And that's what we'll see.
Yeah, well, we've already had them be flat for 10 years. So,
it's going to continue.
Eventually it'll be flat for so long that the locals will be able to go back on the ladder. And, it'll be like when we were young and we put down, 15% and bought a flat in Chelsea.
Yeah. And you broke yourself to pay that 15%, but look how well prices have gone. I think you are seeing people, some investments, but to be fair, the prime areas are under huge pressure because the rental yields, even though rents have gone up 10, 20, 30%, they are still so low compared to the yields that you can get in, not necessarily zone 1. You can still buy an Elephant and Castle and get a 4% yield. You can buy parts of zone 1, but that's not prime. Prime for me is around the park, and that's where it struggles.
Yeah, and that's where you're seeing some of these sort of co-living models and stuff doing so well.
Yep.
I know one particular project where they had predicted to get X in revenue and they ended up getting 40% more than they had predicted because of what's going on in the macro world. Yep. So if you did have a crystal ball, what do you think is going to happen in 2025?
So my predictions are we'll see rental growth at 3 to 4%. I don't think we're going to see 10%. We've seen it not this year. We've seen 7 to 8% this year. So I think it'll be 3 to 4%. Bear in mind if inflation is at 1.8% and may drop even lower or may go up to 2%, let's even say 2.2, you're still in positive cash flow, you're getting more. So that's really good for investors. I think capital values will increase 3 to 5%. I think that's where average prices will move. We don't want to see 15, 20% because if you see that, then you're going to see a crash. But I would rather see 3 to 4% than have stagnancy with nothing. And again, stuff is still selling. I'm sure you see it and we see it. Stuff will still sell if it's rightly priced and people aren't so aggressively ambitious on pricing. It will sell. But yeah, I think we're going to see 3 to 4 on sales, 3 to 4 on rentals. I just think any more than that, people are being very ambitious.
And what are you seeing from tenants after the rentals bill and all the talks that are going on about all these changes in the market? What are you seeing from tenants and what they're liking, not liking, looking for?
So we survey 15 to 20,000 tenants, depending what we have on our system, every 3 months. And we are seeing still location is the most important. And because they want to, when I say location, transport is the key driver that we see now. If they're single or couples, they want to be no more than 10-minute walk to a station. If they're families, they don't really care so much. They want parking and they want to be near good schools. But location is really important. Broadband is still number 4 on our list because people still working from home. Even though we're seeing a reversal, we're still seeing tenants want that speedy broadband. I mean, we have a building not far from Tower Bridge that has no fibre in the building. It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And they try, and they can't dig a cable or some rubbish. But it's interesting that it's still those kind of key drivers that we see. Location is still important. Nearest station is still important. And
connectivity.
And connectivity is the key driver. I mean, one thing that we have seen been interesting is that the Crossrail Elizabeth line, what a massive change that was by being on the stations, how we found that tenants are telling other tenants within companies. So we work for one large tech company, they travel quite a lot. And what they all say is make sure you're on a Crossrail. So actually it's quite interesting when people say, well, I want to be in this area.
But on the Crossrail.
But I want to be near the Crossrail station. And it's just like, and so actually, that's been quite interesting. We do get asked that a lot more. How far is it to the Crossrail station? Because if they're going to Heathrow, they can get out. And actually, we have a development which is in Southall, which is near Heathrow, and that's on Crossrail station. You can get to Canary Wharf in 28 minutes or 25 minutes or something. That's pretty amazing. We've rented to 3 sets of people who commute from Canary Wharf to Southall, or vice versa. They commute from Southall to Canary Wharf to work there because they can get better value. And it's such a quick commute. I mean, I was shocked. I did it because I thought people were taking the mickey when they were saying 25 minutes or whatever it was. Couldn't believe how quick it was. That's a game changer because I always say London's so well connected because of the tube network. And it is. And I think the tube is fantastic. But the Crossrail's made a huge difference. And it's not saying that people won't rent stations that aren't Crossrail. It's just the fact that it is now one of those things that people say. And you know someone's told them. Because they ring and they specifically say, I want to be near one of the Crossrail lines. It's all Crossrail stations. It's really interesting.
So I'm hearing that a lot of what you're doing is in new developments.
Yeah.
So traditionally, when we were young, people would buy these off-plan in Hong Kong, from the Mandarin Oriental, and that was
still do.
So is that still happening?
Not as much, but it's still happening.
So you are getting a lot of Asian investors into these new developments?
Much reduced. A lot of them are for their children or for family. To be honest, the big change that we've seen, people still do these huge exhibitions and and they are incredibly expensive. So anybody realises it's at least £100,000 investment to do a proper Mandarin Oriental thing with a newspaper ad and the whole thing. It's £100,000. That's what a developer will drop. But what we're finding is a lot of the people now will come, they're very interested, they decide the unit, the view, but they want to come and see it. Or they want someone to come and see it. And that's the change we've seen. 3 out of 5, 60% will today want to come and see it. Will reserve subject to viewing. And so actually that's a big change people now today want to see as opposed to in the old days where they would just
because I guess there's a lot more now that you have to take into consideration. Before it was cheap mortgage, no taxes, no inheritance.
All of those good things.
I'm not that connected to this, whereas now you potentially might be holding 100%. It for way longer.
I mean, it's one of the things that is interesting for us. So we have an office in Dubai and we have one in Hong Kong. What we've seen is Dubai market has just gone berserk, like I have never been. I was there for a week, a couple of weeks ago, and we went round 8 developers and it was like they were handing money out. I've never seen people fighting and buying 1,300 sales in a day in a tower, just gone. I mean, I want to move there. But we are still seeing in Dubai, people are buying in Dubai, but they still have this hankering to buy in London. And that's interesting. We're buying, and then it's difficult, right? Because then people, 10% net yield, that's what they get. And there's no tax in Dubai. So if you're in Hong Kong, you're going, London will be a 4% gross yield. and there'll be tax on the income, or I can buy in Dubai and have 10%. Which one would I do? Obviously, they've got a game. Is there going to be capital growth?
Well, you know which one we would do.
I would always do London, but I'm saying when it's on the paper,
definitely.
When it's on paper, it's very encouraging. But we still see people in the Gulf buying. They are buying locally, but they are still buying London. There've been some very big transactions recently, and for me, I think it still works as a London investment. I bought something just off Kensington High Street this year. My daughter may or may not use it at some point, but I bought it as an investment. I bought it purely as an investment. I got a great deal. I got a fantastic deal because my view when you're buying something, if you like the building, but don't get too personally attached to it. Don't get too personally attached to the property, because then if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. When you're buying a car, you say, I want a BMW 420i, and I want it in a dark colour, and I want it newish with 10,000 miles. What you don't do, I want registration AB13PRQ. That's not how you buy a car. You don't say, this is the car I want, and you chase your world round until you pay far too much. With a flat, people do that.
Yeah.
People say, oh, I love the one on the 3rd floor. It was painted nicely. That's a mistake. That's a big mistake for an investor. You should buy a location you want, with the money you want, and find the flat. And my view when I buy is this is my personal advice, when I find something, I want the flat. This is my price. If you don't want to sell to me, don't sell to me. Go sell to somebody else. And if I lose it, I lose it. And people say I'm being very hard negotiator. I'm not being hard negotiator. I don't want it then.
You're just being a detached investor, which actually is the best type of client.
That's the only type of investor should be. And I love investors who are like that with me, say, I want it, and I want it at this price. I've got a big investor at the moment he's from India. He doesn't live in India, but original Indian national. And he wants to buy with Redbook pricing, which for anybody knows is effectively the price you can sell for tomorrow. Redbook pricing, less 15 to 20%. He doesn't mind what he buys.
So long as it's that.
So long as it's Redbook, less 15%. And he will buy in Zone 1, Zone 2, and you would be amazed the stuff that we're being offered. And it's very interesting when you have that kind of cold, he's worse than me because he's like, I don't even want you to tell me where it is. Just send me my valuer to do Redbook less 20% and I will buy it. And it can be from 500,000 to 50 million. I don't care. He's investing 350 million this year. So it shows there are people out there.
Yeah.
But he is
Not everyone's going to call you.
Yeah, everyone's going to call me. If you're looking for Redbook less 20%, I'm not necessarily the best person.
He's got 350 million to spend, everybody.
Everybody, no, definitely not. But I use that as the example that there are investors out there. And yes, his view is, I will get yield and there's capital uplift. And he's factoring that in. But other than that, and I use that because I'm not as bad as that when I look to buy. But I think this is the price I'm willing to pay. I know I can service the mortgage. I know I can let it. And that's what I'll pay. And if it doesn't work, then I'll wait for something else. And that's a much better mindset.
This is actually the time in the market where you want to be that guy.
You have to be that person.
Because when you're determined and you're going after things in a market like this, you're definitely going to find them.
There are
and
deals
quite frequently, I think.
And I think there are deals out there. And don't everybody call me for those deals because Benham Reeves, we achieve the highest prices for our clients. But what I'm saying is if you are an investor and you want a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, whatever your budget is, you just look at that stuff that's been sitting on the portals if you want advice, and you call up and say, what will it? Go and look at it, and you have to invest a bit of time because you have to look at stuff, right? Yeah. But don't be put off that it's tenanted. So what if it's tenanted? It gives you income, and then you can do it up afterwards.
And no one else can compete with you because they probably want it vacant.
Exactly.
I mean, not as many people will compete with you, so you're onto a good thing.
And for me, I'm an investor, a long-term investor, and I don't mind, but. Just make, the only thing I would say that I say to investors is when you're coming, just make sure you're ready. So when you make an offer and they accept it, that is not the time to go, wow, now how am I going to pay for that? That is the worst thing. Every agent hates that. Every vendor hates that. And it's just stupid. So my view is you decide on the money, you work out, I'm going to be able to get about this finance, have I got this in cash, and bear in mind stamp duty and the soft costs that go with it. Yes, I'm ready to go. Make sure it's all sitting there. And then you start your search. Please don't start your search, offer agreed, and then go, I did say cash, but actually I need a loan now, and I don't know where I'm going to get a loan, and that's you're not going to get a deal like that. You need to be buying something and move quickly.
We could go on forever, but I'm just going to ask you one more question before thanking you. And that is, you mentioned that you had some interest from Nigerian investors, you had some interest from Indian investors. Is there a pattern of investors that you're seeing?
No. Honestly, we have, as I said, 15 offices globally, and we have them in areas where we feel that we're the most investors. Shanghai was huge. China, 1.5 billion people. I was there, and it's going to make you die. I was there, and I met a guy who we're about to do a deal with. They manage properties in China. They set up 13 years ago. It just tells you what the country's like, because I think it's a great stat. Guess how many properties they manage? Been going 13 years.
10,000?
No, 1 million properties. 1.1 million. God. 1.1 million properties. They need a tie-up with a UK agent because they have lots of people for London and tenants, and we're just in the process. And I use that, so our Shanghai office is busy, but it's hard to get the money out. And that's for the owner to sort out. We are not finding any particular market better or worse than others. The traditional ones have seen a drop in volume. But we opened in Indonesia and Jakarta because we are seeing they traditionally used to invest into the US. Now Indonesians are looking at the UK is much more friendly, so they are looking at that. We opened in Bangkok, which has been amazing for us. We have an office in South Africa. Again, not loads of buyers, but there are some investors coming through. Nigeria's handled out of our Dubai office. Dubai's been busy generally locally, but the traditional Hong Kong, Singapore, KL markets are still happening, but the day's gone where you did a show and did 60, 50, 60, 70 sales. It's not. We just consistently, we want to do as many sales as we can, but as long as we're seeing consistency with people coming through, but there's no trend with any nationality, with any type of investor. I think money laundering here is very important, I might add, because we don't want everybody, drug smugglers and stuff here, and money launderers here. However, I think we make it incredibly difficult, and the compliance that a lot of people have to go through is quite insane. I have a client at the moment, he is relatively high profile, and he's buying something for his daughter. And his daughter has a job with a large company, but her salary is low. He's buying a flat for her. And not only have they asked the daughter to ID the money, she then passed it on to the dad. And they've now asked the father to say, where did his father get the money from? I mean, it's mad. And he's in a European country as well. It's not like they're coming from a red list country. I mean, it's quite difficult, and people do get upset by it. And
but I also think it's a little bit of a lack of training, because people are going to such extremes without even thinking.
No.
Like, KYC, and then they don't see anything more.
I agree.
Well, listen, it's been really, really interesting talking to you, and I really look forward to welcoming you back to the show again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to our latest episode of the London Property Podcast. Head over to our website where you can browse our exclusive network of top experts driving the market. As a member, you'll have direct access to our experts and their networks. Our award-winning content will help you choose the right professionals for your needs and make informed decisions about your investments. Personal recommendations are a powerful tool in connecting with trusted professionals. Let us introduce you to the right people to help you achieve your real estate goals. Contact us now to learn more about becoming a member and gaining access to these valuable resources, or joining our directory of experts.